What's going on, guys? Back with another episode of Modified Rides Podcast. I'm here with one of the OGs in the scene, Ron, as he says, motherfucking Perkins. What's going on, Ron?
What's happening, B? How are you?
Good, good. Uh, Looks like you're just up there chilling in Portland still.
Yeah. Just holding it down in Oregon. It's unbelievably hot today, like 81 degrees, zero humidity. Can't
Don't
complain.
don't, don't y'all get like rain all the time up there, or is
Yeah,
that
yeah. That's
more of
why.
a
That's
Seattle
why.
thing?
No. That's why the suicide rate's so high up here, and that's why Kurt's no longer with us. Allegedly.
Okay. So I've been trying to get Ron on. He's like I said, been an OG in it. He's built a few cool vehicles, I guess you'd say. You've had a few things. So I guess let's start back at the beginning. And how did you get involved in the custom vehicle world?
Well, I mean, honestly, my dad had always been into custom vehicles. I remember, like the youngest. Or I mean, like the first vehicle I remember him having was a '77 Malibu station wagon, and he had pulled the motor. He pulled this V6 out of the station wagon, put a Corvette motor in it, put some big wide tires on the back of it, and then painted it like this super cool. I guess what you would call like a rival blue, like what Chevy did on their trucks a while back.
Yeah.
Painted a real blue, cool blue color. Lowered it down, and and ever since he had that car, I was just hooked on it. It was fast, it was loud, and it was super cool. I remember one night, me and my dad told my mom, "Hey, we're gonna go for a spin around the block," and she's like, "Be careful." And so we took off, and I couldn't have been more than just out of a high chair. And my dad's doing this massive burnout with these big old meats on the back. Tire blows out of the right hand side. I was like, dang it. So I was like, what are we going to do now, Dad? And he's like, well, son, we got to change the tire. So we jack the car up. We throw a little donut tire on the back of this thing that had like 12-inch wide, 15 by 12s on it. Throw the donut on it. And I'm like, well, I guess no more burnouts. We better go home, right? He's like, Pop's like, fuck that. Just lays on it. That little donut is roasting. We boiled that thing too and then drug the rim home. It was red. I would have to say I was probably like my first like influence into vehicle, customization itself. But, I was at home one day. I was roommates with Dave Bushow and a bunch of people up here in the Northwest, and he had shown me this video. Like videos were not like shared like they are nowadays. He showed me a video of
Yeah.
this suburban, yellow suburban. I think it was in your neck of the woods, and it was just railing its balls off, and just the yellow paint and the bright ass sparks like that had me hooked to mini trucking and air ride, big wheels ever since that. So that's kind of like the start, I guess. But I mean, honestly, rest in peace, my dad. He really got me into it and got me doing things.
Now, what was your first project you had built? I'm sure you had something before you went crazy with the big ones.
Uh well, at the time I thought it was pretty big. I had an '84 Mazda long bed, the courier style truck.
Yeah, yeah.
This shit was brown, like turd brown. I bought it off my dad. It had a big old camper shell on it with a double door walk-in shits in the back. And I remember I got that truck, and everybody in my neighborhood had a Mazda, and I was like, man, I'll get a Mazda, and I'm gonna throw some wires on it. They're gonna stick out. It's gonna be tight. And I went to work. We ripped that canopy off. I worked at a canopy store, or camper shell, whatever you want to call it. And we put the tailgate back on the truck. Well, this truck was coil springs in the front, leaf springs in the back. And so my buddy that had a Nissan, he had his lowered with wires on it, and he's like, "Oh, well, we just need to trim up the springs a little bit in the front and take the leaf springs out of the back." I'm like, "Okay, tight." So we did that. The frame is on the axle, and we cut way too much out of the coils out front. Those little, like when you pull into the gas station and the semi truck fills the tanks underground, that little hump that they have in there,
Yeah.
got that truck stuck on that shit. And then the guy pumping gas, like in Oregon, most people that are listening or watching don't know. But in Oregon and New Jersey are the two states where you can't pump your own gas. So back then,
I thought it was just New Jersey.
no, it's Oregon also. So the
Oh,
gas attendant had to help me push that thing off the fucking, and it's a 5 speed. So I'm like letting out the clutch with my right foot, pushing it at the same time, just hoping that it doesn't go into one of the gas pumps. But so that was like my first one. It actually had a white gem top camper shell on it, and those shells would sit on the back of the cab. Like they called it a kiss seal because it would like kiss the back of the cab. So I'm like, well, fuck this. I just got to cut out the bottom and I could throw some subs in the bed. So I cut out the bottom, threw some accordion boot rubber on it, and sealed all that up super tight. I put 410s behind the seat, and I was like, man, this isn't very loud. So I put an 18-inch Rockford back by the tailgate. And there's two things I remember about that truck. The first time I turned on in stereo, I cranked it all the way up, and it blew all the canopy windows out. And then the other thing is I was working at a movie theater in Beaverton, Oregon, and I did the night shift. So whenever I got off work, I was able to leave. Well, I would clean the theater from midnight at the last show until like 7 in the morning. Well, everybody was lining up for the new release movie like Spider-Man or whatever the fuck it was that day. And this is back when Vanilla Ice is like not cool anymore. Like not like retro cool
Yeah.
like he is now, not like cool when the first week he came out. So my buddy comes pulling up. We're gonna go to the beach, which is an hour from us, and I took the camper shell off so we could have the whole back open, just have the breeze blowing us. And he is slamming Ice Ice Baby, and it was everything I could do to just hold my head in shame and like get in the passenger side. And he's like, "No, you're driving this motherfucker." I'm like, "God damn it, fucking good times."
So I guess that little build led you to your first big one, or was there more stuff in between?
Well, the next one after that was a 81 Buick that again my buddy Bush, his grandmother had given him. It was about the color of the shirt. It was like a burgundy Buick celebrity, maybe. Like every grandma had one of these fucking cars. Um, we lived in a pretty upscale neighborhood, and there was six of us that rented this, which is probably like a $4 million house nowadays. Um, so we are have this car out in the driveway. We have the whole front end taped off. We're spraying fucking paint on it. We have it all taped off for flames. And these kids are riding by. We have big old like 4-inch exhaust tip on the back. We got some uh, five spoke hubcaps that had disc simulators on the back of them. This thing was like true gangster. These kids go right by. They're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And we're like, "Oh, we're making a convertible." And they're like, "That's not a convertible." And right then I took the hammer and I threw it through the back window, and these kids' eyes got this big. So maybe they're customizing cars now, but so we took that unibody, clean, took the top off it. It was a 4-door, never used the doors, just hopped over the thing. That was probably one of my favorite builds.
What when did you do your first magazine truck? That was still early in our careers, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I did a Mazda that I put a which at the time was a brand new Frontier. I put a Frontier clip on it, put S10 taillights in it, long bed conversion, so it was a King or Cab Plus, whatever the Mazda guys say. Cab Plus long bed conversion, S10 taillights, Grant Cali combo. That was I felt like that was like my first like custom vehicle. My first magazine vehicle was my '05 Frontier. And that one, I remember I built that truck and Mike Alexander was at Drop Zone at the time. And he's like, "Hey, we're going to shoot that for a feature this weekend." And I was like, "No, you mean you're going to shoot it for the cover, right?" And he's like, "No, there's nothing done to the interior." So I'm like, "Okay." So then I took it back home. I brought it to Drop Zone the following year, which is in July up here in Oregon. And it was just the chassis. And it had these 33-inch, no, 35-inch Mutter tires on it. And everybody's like, "What the hell?" And it's got this small block Chevy motor in it that had like valve covers and air cleaner, had like a bow tie inside of a Nissan symbol on it. So people didn't know what the fuck was going on. And then the next year, I got everything back together. It had a 65 Mercury Monterey dash in it. The floors, the back wall, the door panels, everything was welded one piece, painted. The roof came out of a Dodge Ram pickup. It was steel painted, but it looked like a bead roll panel on the roof. Um, Smooth firewall, 24s in the front, 26s in the back. I took it to SEMA and with a big sticker across the windshield that said 100-inch club, and that pretty much got it on the cover of the magazine.
And this was which one?
It was the blue and silver irregular cab.
Now that started as an extended cab there, right?
Yeah, yeah. Nissan didn't build
Now
a
you
standard cab, so I did.
so how did that come about? That's the I guess the question I have. So what made you have this brand new vehicle and say I want to cut it apart to make something no one's made?
Well, it wasn't the $20,000 loan that I had on it as a kid because that scared the shit out of me. Honestly, what it was is some of the people listening aren't going to be able to remember this, but back in the day, they used to make pictures, and instead of viewing them on your phone, you would actually they would draw on paper. It's the damnedest thing. So anyway, I took some pictures of the truck because it was built and it was blue and silver and it had flames and everything. It was fully done. It just I didn't have anything done to the interior because it was just so boring. And I wanted people to see. My thing was, I told Mike Alexander, I was like, why do I have to do something to the interior? And he goes, well, it needs to be cover worthy. And I said, look, if I got a broad, as soon as I get her inside, I ain't worried about anything else. I obviously did my job. So let's put it on the cover. And he's like, no, you got to do the interior. So, yeah, basically, I just did it because I wanted to do it. I had taken some photos of the truck, and they were sitting on my desk when I was at work one day, when I worked at the place that sold camper shells, and two of the pictures were overlapped, and it just I was like, man, that would make a killer standard cab truck. So I like got some scissors out and I cut it down the middle and I put them over the top, and that was realistically like the first rendering of it.
So how long after that till you decided to cut the truck apart though? Because you said the truck was already done pretty much.
Yeah, the truck was done. It was pretty much. I went home. I got on my online banking. I made the final payment, and I went out to the garage with Sharpies and I drew on it for a week, and then I fucking cut it.
So you just basically cut the extended cab part off and welded the back of the cab back onto like where the doors close, right?
Yeah, it sounds simple. I basically what what I did was uh it had a sunroof in it, a glass sunroof. So I had to cut the roof in order to get rid of that sunroof. So I ended up cutting it up the extended cab door, um, and then through the structure, like the side structure, and then I had to cut it
Yeah.
forward towards the windshield and then across and then back. So it was almost like an H that I had to cut it out. And then I built an interior roll cage out of 2.5 and 2 inch pipe on the inside, and I welded everything together, to the truck rather. And then I literally slid it together like an accordion, welded the roll cage together, and then started stitching up the cab, stitched up the doors. So when it was done, the doors actually went suicide and opened. And mainly that only reason for that, I hate suicide doors, but the only reason for that is because there was no way for me to really swing the door the front way and make it look factory, because those doors or like an F-150, like on an extended cab, once you open that door, there's nothing behind there. So my main concern was
Oh.
like, this needs to look original. And so I think I accomplished it, but it just like I never liked like every show, like there's very few shows where you see pictures with the doors open, just because I didn't like that gap there, so to speak.
And I guess you had to shorten the frame and everything to make the rest of it match, didn't you?
Yeah, I actually built a whole chassis for it, and this was back in 2005, and on the West Coast, not West Coast, but Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana. That's not super popular. They were doing it. They were building chassis down in California, but in Arizona, but not up here. So we built a whole chassis for it. Put a small block Chevy motor in it. Yeah, and the thing was nasty. Like it would roast those 26s like nobody's business.
And you had it at SEMA in what, 05 or 06?
It was at SEMA in '05 when it was a king cab, and '07 or 8 when it was a standard cab or irregular cab, but it was orange. So nobody really, there's very few pictures of it when it was orange because everybody had, I took it to all over the country. It was on Power Block. All that stuff was
Yeah.
done. So people don't remember the SEMA. I remember when I was at SEMA, it was parked in the dub area. You know where the dub area is out front
Yep. That's you.
where you
That's where
start?
usually my vehicles are at.
Yeah, exactly. So, so a guy named John Ramos was like, "Hey, your truck's dope. Bring it out. We got a primetime spot for you." It was literally right in front of the convention center, and I was going to shut the camper shell because I had a camper shell for my employer that I worked at the time. Um, I went to shut the camper shell, and these guys walked by, and they had Nissan badges on, and the one guy goes, "I'm pretty sure it's a Ford," and the other guy goes, "No, it's definitely a Chevy." And I'm just like, I think I did it. And that year, I ended up getting a SEMA Design Award, so I was super pumped about that. Like, I'm not a big
So you
trophy
were
guy,
there.
but that's the one that I do have.
You were there for Dub that time. I guess
Correct.
TIS pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah. I
Well,
had
who was you there for the first time?
the first go around, it was in Gem Top's booth. So they were a camper manufacturer, like canopy shells for back in the day. They actually were doing a project with Boyd Coddington when he was still alive, and they had all Boyd's trucks in there, and then my Nissan was in the booth also because I had a flat like bed cover. They called it a GT Classic, and if you ever find a GT Classic that fits your truck, like buy it. Like it doesn't matter if it's $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. Those things are not around anymore.
I didn't. I don't ever remember it being orange. I remember it being blue and silver. I never knew you changed it to orange.
Yeah, yeah, it was orange. And that year at SEMA, it was um, so where your GMC was um, for TIS last year. If
Yeah.
you were to walk out towards the road, like if you were to walk like you were going into the South Hall, it was right there, like right in front.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, and
Yeah,
it
I
was,
deal with Ramos every year for
yeah,
all my stuff. They've always him and Miles have always taken care of me. So
yeah, they're good people.
now you had. Well, I guess we'll go back to that. Whatever happened to that truck?
That truck, I actually had sold it to a buddy that lived in St. Louis. I sold it to him about 2 weeks before I moved to St. Louis, and he drove out to Portland and picked it up, and then took it to SEMA, and not took it to SEMA, but went down to Devious Customs, helped them with the SEMA build, took it down to SEMA. Well, I guess I should say he took it to Las Vegas,
Yeah.
parked it where nobody could see it, drove it back home. He started rebuilding it. He put all new sheet metal on it except for the cab and the hood, I believe. And the doors are swinging the correct way now. It's got a bumper on it. It's got factory taillights on it. So when I built that truck, I was part of a car club called Relaxed Atmosphere, and I had a lot of club pride. I built that truck, and I actually made taillights that were tinted blue, and they had an R in it, but they were diagonal like this, and they had 3 bars in each side. And
Yeah.
everybody was like, "Hey, that taillight's backwards," and I'm like, "No, that's my car club logo." And they're like, "Why would you put your car club logo in your taillights?" And I would always just tell them, well, because I want you to know when you're following first place. So
Now, I guess it was after that you built the Blazer. For some reason, I was thinking the Blazer was before the
yeah,
Frontier.
no, no, I built Deblazed after that, and one thing a lot of people don't know, the brakes on that thing were off the Nissan because the
Oh,
Nissan had
really?
bare brakes all the way around on it, and um,
Well, I guess let's step back though. So your Frontier though, do you remember
yeah.
what issue it was on the cover of?
Oh man, it must have
The mini
been
truck.
July maybe of 2010.
Oh, so it took that long after it was at SEMA or after it was done to run.
Yeah, well, yeah, SEMA it was orange, so I took it back. It must have been SEMA '08. I had it there in orange, and I took it back to Portland. I had a guy named Josh Jones, who's an incredible painter up here in the Northwest. He actually lives in, or at the time lived in Puyallup, Washington, and ran a company called Josh Jones Paint Innovations, or Josh Jones Innovations, something like that. But he did the flames to where they were more like traditional hot rod flames, because the first go around, if you ever see pictures of it in the King Cab, it was in mini trucking, like right after I got it done, and they had graphic disorders rendering next to my truck, and the flames look real cartoony, and it always bugged me because it was like the flames were cartoon shaped, and it was like purples and blues and stuff they were pinstriped with, and I didn't really dig it. But Josh Jones, um, he's painted tons of SEMA vehicles. He got down on it, and I was without it for, by the time, well, I came back from SEMA in '08. I think I sent it to him in the summer of '09, and then showed it all summer. Showed it all of 2010 when I was at West Coast Nationals. They shot it for the cover.
Who shot it?
Uh, Mike Finnegan.
Oh, did he?
Mike Finnegan, begin again. We shot it in the desert. I didn't have the truck running yet, and Mike Finnegan was like, "Hey, is this thing run?" And I said, actually, it doesn't." And he goes, "Well, that's surprising because." Or he goes, "That's surprising." And I go, "Why is that?" And he goes, "Most people have their cover trucks shot. They tell me that they run, and then they're pushing them around." I'm like,
So
"Well, it doesn't."
why why did you paint it orange after that though? Just to something different?
Well, to be honest, it was on every single mini truck and magazine on the back cover for 2 years in the Nitto ad.
Oh, that
Um,
is right.
and
Forgot about that.
that's when it had the cartoony flames on it. And um, everybody, I'm a fairly shy guy, but everybody would always like introduce me to their friends as, "Hey, this is Ron. He's got the blue and silver Frontier." And I don't know why, but it like bugged the shit out of me. So what I wanted to do was go completely 180 from what it was before. So people would just see the truck. They wouldn't associate it with me. They would just be like, "Oh, fuck, this is cool. Like, check out this, check out
Something
this."
new.
Yeah. And so, but the fact of the matter is that I didn't like it. Like, I don't know if it was the orange or if it was just like no graphics, but I didn't like it. And so that's why there's not that many pictures of it, because the only picture really that's floating around is the one at SEMA, and then one that was in front of the Gem Top, camper lot that I used to work at. Those are like the two pictures that you'll ever see of that truck orange.
So, how long after you sold the Frontier did you tear into the Blazer?
Actually, the Blazer was done for 2 years before I sold the Nissan.
Okay. It was done.
And
So you had both of them at the same time.
yeah, actually, I had the Nissan, the Blazer, and that red RT Ram that I had on 28s. I had all three of those at the same time,
Oh, damn.
which is probably why I'm
Well,
divorced now.
so I guess because you cut the Frontier up and made it something different, is that what gave you the idea to cut a Blazer up to turn it what was it called deblazed?
Yeah, yeah, no, the 100% truth is I was working at Gem Top, and I was working in the install area, and I'd install these Gem Top camper shells and tonneau covers, and a K5 Blazer had come in, and it had a fiberglass cab on it,
Yeah.
and the bottom was open, and I was like, "That's fucking dope! Like if I could do that with an S10, like it would be so cool," because it was like super squashed and just looked like real aggressive and bulldog. And so what I did was I got a Blazer, $500 truck, um, and then I went and I cut the roof off, um, and then come to find out the Blazer roof is actually 2 inches taller than an S10 pickup. So when I
Oh.
went to put the S10 cab roof onto the Blazer, the doors hung over the top of it. So then I had to go buy another S10 cab, and then I cut it at the A pillars behind the windshield, and then got it all fitting right to the doors and everything. Welded it up, put a new windshield in. Um, bunch of tons of friends in Idaho came through because all the body work, all the paint had to be done in like 3 weeks to get it down to Vegas for SEMA.
What year did you have it there?
That would have been 2011. It was there in 11 and in 2012. So
Who'd
it
you
was
have it
in,
there?
what's that?
Who'd you have it there for?
It was in the auto lock booth 1 year, and then the second, which was in Hot Rod Alley, right across from GM. So it got uh, a lot of publicity on it. We did a car when I worked for them that was on the TV show Chop Cut and Revealed. So both of those were on the TV show, and then I actually took that one back out to Franklin, Tennessee, which is 30 hour drive from here. That was on the power block also. It was on the cover of Mini Truckin'. So pretty much everything that the Nissan did, the Blazer did, except for the Truck of the Year because the magazine went under.
Now, how did you get linked up with the Power Block? Because I know, we always used to watch that show. I know it changed hands. It was Spike and Speed, and it was all these different channels. But weekends, Power Block, every one of us car guys would sit and watch it every morning. So, how did you get linked up to where you become the infamous on TV Ron Perkins?
Well, the funny thing about that is, you might know Eric Saliba from the Little Shop.
Oh yeah, oh
Okay,
yeah. I've
so
done a lot of stuff for him over the years.
yeah, he's a good dude. He's in relaxed atmosphere at the time, and he had his Spike truck before it burnt down. He had that on their show, and so the producer, his name was John. He's telling Eric, he goes, "Man, I want to get more of these mini trucks on here. These things are so cool. Like we have all these hot rods and all these classics and everything. We really want to get some more mini trucks on here. Do you know any mini truckers?" And he goes, "How about this one?" And he shows him a picture of my truck. And he's like, "Oh, that thing's super sweet. Like, can you have him here this Wednesday?" And he's like, "Well, he's in Oregon." And so he's like, "I thought you said he was in your car club." And he goes, "Yeah, well, we have guys in Japan and Canada, and Mexico and Australia. Like, it's not
And
just Tennessee."
Eric's only a couple hours from where their studio was, so I
Yeah.
guess he thought he was only a couple hours away.
Yeah, he thought it was just right down the road. So John got a hold of me and I said, "Man, I just got back from SEMA. I really, can't afford it." I was every paycheck I would go to the Shell gas station and I would buy a $50 gas card, like a gift card, and I would put it in my desk and I would just, as soon as I had enough to travel, I would take all those gas cards and I would pack a cooler full of sandwiches and chips and hit the road. And that's just the way that we did it when we were kids. Like any way to do it,
Oh yeah.
just get it done. So yeah,
So
so I ended up going out there and it was on the block. And then and funny enough, when the Blazer was on it, like I wasn't even trying to get the Blazer on it, but I was trying. My buddy that had painted the Blazer, his name's Jason Luckevold, and he's a severed ties guy in Idaho. He had a Mazda that had some crazy rad flames on it. And I messaged that John guy and I was like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And he's like, "Oh, that's sweet. Can you get him here?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, he's in Idaho, but I'll figure out what time he can get out there." And he's like, "Oh man, thanks, I appreciate it." And he goes, "What are you working on?" And I go, "Oh, just this old piece of shit Blazer." He's like, "Oh, send me some pictures of it." So it had like a white fender, a tan door, a red cab, and black bed rail cab. Like it was 17 different colors. And he's like, "You got to bring that shit out here when it's done." So that's really how that one got on the block.
now, what happened to that truck? Where's it at now?
That truck, what did George Strait say? It's alive and well in Tennessee.
I've never seen it though. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
it's in Clarksville, Tennessee.
I'm an hour from Tennessee, or not even
Yeah,
that, probably 45 minutes to the state line, and I hit all the shows, and I've never seen it.
yeah, yeah. It's been sitting in the same place since I dropped it off uh 10 years ago.
Damn, has it been that long?
Yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
it's like it might be a 9. It's not a Tennessee though.
It's crazy that people buy stuff like that and never take it out anywhere.
Yeah,
So, I know you started working on another Blazer. I guess you decided to scrap that project. I know you cut the roof off another one.
yeah, yeah. I was starting D-Blaze 2.0. I was on the road so much working. that I just didn't have time for it. And I told my buddy, I was like, dude, I'm not going to be able to get back. Like we're putting an LS in it, and it was going to get leather interior. It was basically going to be 2.0. It was going to be the first Blazer that I built, but just like radder. So
Yeah.
I'm super bummed about that, but you can't win them all.
Now, where in this whole process did Hammered Weekend Wear come in? Because you started that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Hammer weekend wear.
how did that come out?
Um, the hammered thing, like just being in Oregon, being in Portland when I was growing up, like, and we were hanging out on the block, me and my buddies. We were on BMX bikes, jumping shit, breaking arms and stuff. And we would see a truck go by, and it was just everybody would be like, "Look at that thing! It's fucking hammered! Look at that fucking truck's hammered!" Blah blah blah. And so, like, I just one day I'm gonna have a brand that's only for it's not just mini trucks. It's like
Yeah.
it's mini trucks, it's imports, it's classics, it's anything that is just laying on the ground, like hammered. And my very first shirt was a 67 C10, and it said I drive hammered. And I sold like 10 shirts. And I'm like, fuck, man, did I really bomb this? Like, what's going on? Like, I think it's fucking great. And people were messaging me left and right. They're like, I didn't buy that shirt because I couldn't drive my truck wearing it.
Ah,
So eventually, like when I reordered them, because I didn't have enough money to like buy the numbers that I was buying, more recently. When I reordered it, I've sold 30 times the initial order.
yeah.
So it was just an idea in my head. One day I told my wife, she thought I was crazy as hell. Um, and and I'm still divorced, so I mean apparently it wasn't the greatest idea. But
Now,
yeah, that's
you traveled
basically where it
the
came
country
from.
pretty extensively with it. I mean, you were gone pretty much every weekend setting up at shows and selling shirts. And, how long
Yeah.
did you run that before you sold it?
Uh, well, the part that really got to me, like I loved going to car shows. I loved talking to people. Um, I ended up doing it for about 8.5 years. 8 years, we'll say 8 years roughly. Um, but the part that bugged me about it was like doing the taxes at the end of the year. Like I felt like I was getting kicked in the balls every year. Like I'd kill it, and then I'd have to shove a bunch of money off to to Washington D.C. and be like, "Here's your money. Here's your money." Like that pissed me off. It was really tough when I was on the road to keep track of inventory control and people's orders on the website. Like my ultimate favorite was just hanging out inside the trailer talking to people, and that's when we started doing shot glasses. We started doing shots with our friends, and then it became a little more deeper into the hammered part of the weekend wear. Um, so yeah, when I sold it, like Adam took it over, like he was a distributor in Knoxville, Tennessee, and
Yeah.
and he was killing it like left and right. And I told him, I was like, man, you're knocking it back. Like, why don't you just buy this from me? So he's like, let me talk to my wife and I'll get back to you. So he's like, hey, you're never gonna believe what my wife said about buying the business. And I'm like, what's that? And he goes, she said, fuck no. And I'm like, oh shit, you're right. I'm not gonna believe that. That's crazy. Like I opened the books, like I showed you what we're doing. Like if you hustle, you can get paid. And and so he's like, I know she said that. And so we talked about it and we decided to buy it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So now they're doing nifty little things like this is a little shot glass. Like I don't know, like next to my hat how small this thing is, but they're making these little shot glasses that look like tumblers. They're doing now. They hooked up with Jason Thorbeck. They're making these billet badges that say Hammered Weekend wear on them. Like we were doing fun stuff when I was there, like making these little drink cups. So you'd have a cocktail at the show. It says
Yeah.
cups up, trucks down. Like, that was the whole idea behind Hammered Weekend where it was just a good time. I actually when I had my van and I was on the road, on both doors, the driver door and the passenger door, it said um apparel is our it said apparel is our brand, good times is our business, or something to that effect. And that's literally what it was. Like I was hitting the streets, coast to coast, anywhere from here to Tampa, Florida, just having a good time with my people. And I love that. And I miss it every single day. But, at the end of the day, like when you're dealing with the government and taxes and inventory control and deadlines and getting t-shirts shipped out on time and making sure that, you're still making a profit so you can make your truck payment, you can make your payment on your trailer, you make your mortgage when you're at home.
Yeah.
Like that's what really kind of killed my like love for being out there. But Adam Tripp is actually killing it back there, and like every design is just better and better and better, and it makes me super proud that he's that he continues the legacy, because that's what I was worried about. I was like, I can just shut the door, turn the website off, we're done, have 2,000 shirts in stock and just donate them to the homeless. But I, decided, like I told Adam, I'm like, hey, if you're gonna make a run at this, it's got to be a good one. You can't just be fucking around, because this is my baby.
He does. I see him at all the shows. I mean, he's definitely still got a presence out there. I mean, hell, I remember when we spoke about Cranberry. You wanted to run it, and that was super cool. I mean, I still wear the shirts. It's got Cranberry on it. Hell,
Yeah,
even my mouse pad's the one where I've got the shirt and the banner, and
that's
like I said,
tight.
that's my mouse pad.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
it
No,
was
I was
cool to
super
have.
pumped about that truck, because it was like we put the bottle of Tito on it, and rest in peace to Courtney Halliwell, but he was a good friend of mine. I got a tattoo to memorialize him, and when we did that shirt, I felt a little piece of him like coming out in it. I remember one time I told him, I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about." This was back when I had my niece on. I told him, I said, "Hey, he had his niece on. They were both on in a Nitto ad." Actually, and we used to talk all the time. And I told him, I was like, "Man, I'm thinking about starting this T-shirt company." And he's like, "Why are you thinking, man? Like, just fucking do it. Like, go for it. Like, you don't jump off the cliff, you ain't gonna win." And so, man, every day I think about that dude, and I'm just, when we did your shirt, it just brought back something that I knew. I was like, man, Court's looking down, and he's just like, that's a bad motherfucker right there. So, yeah, no, I appreciate you letting us use that, and the name behind it meant a lot to me.
And that actually, worked out good because the cover come out, the shirt come out, like everything hit, about the same time. So that was cool to have a company like yours at the time to say I want to use your truck on a shirt like that. That meant a lot for sure.
Good. And that's what I tried to reinforce to people online. Like, I remember when I was running the business, I would be online all the time, and I was telling people like, hey, like I see you in the garage right now busting your ass and fucking cutting your fingers off and bleeding all over the place. Like, just keep at it. Like, you might, I don't know what your goal is, but if you keep at it, and just work hard, like good things are going to come. And a lot of those same guys, 2 years, 3, 5 years later, I was putting their truck on a shirt, and they were just, it was the best goddamn thing that happened to them. And it made me feel so proud that we could do that for somebody, and just give them the confidence to not give up, and just shoot for the moon. Cause I mean, otherwise, what the fuck are you doing here?
I know you sold out of my shirt, so that was pretty cool. So either you didn't order a
Fast.
bunch or you sold a bunch, one of the two. So
No, I think you ordered them all. You took them all. Don't lie to the people.
I've got a stack of them in the closet, hoodies. The wife's got a custom zip up we had done. So yeah, it's still represented on a regular basis. So
Yeah, I
I guess
appreciate
now
that.
that you're not doing the t-shirt stuff, you stepped into the tank wrap. What tell us about your tank wrap company?
Yeah, air wraps is something that we started out doing with flow air tanks. I can actually show you a displayed one. But we'll take
And
basic.
for you guys that are just audio listeners, this will force you to go over to YouTube to pull it up. So
Yeah, so we take a flow tank, and we'll take your car club, we'll take your car show, we'll take your business, pretty much anything that you want to do, and put it on a tank wrap. We do, I haven't done this one, but we do Vire compressors. Um, but if you can you see the air tank there?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's what we do. We take a rather boring air tank, and wrap it right here, and then you got these polished ends, so it still looks nice. You have your car club logo right there. You could have um, Burrell images right there, like whatever you want to do. So we've been doing those. That's been fun. I'm a mini trucker at heart, so this is my my laid out Accord that I drive on the daily. I got a Maverick around the corner that's getting ready to have some fun done to it. But yeah, it's been keeping me busy and it's been fun. So the toughest thing is just getting, and you'll know this firsthand, is just the amount of people that don't realize what a high resolution file is. Like, send me a high resolution PDF,
Yeah.
and they don't know what that is. So, if if I get a high res PDF, it's
Oh
fairly
yeah.
inexpensive to do that. And you know you don't like it, you put your wife's name on there, doesn't work out, you peel that shit off, and you put your girlfriend's name on there. Like, it's that easy. You can put Honda on it, you can put Mazda on it, you can put Cranberry on it. Like, you can put anything on it.
So what's in the future for Ron? Is it other than the air wraps? You got any other projects you're working on? You just kind of taking a break and riding out right now?
I think the next project I'm going to be working on might be, 125 pounds, blonde, D cups.
So you're
Um,
getting into the expensive market. You're getting the exotic market, right? So
exotic, yeah. I was into mini trucks when I was a kid. Now I'm getting into the exotics. No, I'm basically I'm down here in Eugene, Oregon. I go to a lot of concerts. I went and seen Pearl Jam. I'm going to Foo Fighters, Bush. A lot of like bucket list bands. Like, I've been a Bush fan my whole life, so I've seen them all over the country. That's one thing a lot of people don't know about me. They just know that, they just know Hammered Ron. They just know, Nissan Ron, D-Blazed Ron. But I'm a huge music fan. Anything that's alternative-y. I went and seen Red Hot Chili Peppers about 2 months ago. So that's, I guess if you, I mean, other than being a Cardinals fan, like, I'm a huge Arizona Cardinals fan. Like, all my hats up here are all Cardinals. That's all Cardinals. I got this little Cardinals throw blanket here that I sleep with every night. So I'm constantly flying down to Arizona, going to football games, driving up to Seattle, drive to San Francisco. I saw DJ Quick in San Francisco. Went to a football game there. So I mean, between football and concerts, it's really it's kept my life pretty busy.
nice. So how do people find you online when they want to follow some of your antics?
You can basically follow me on Facebook. It's just Ron Perkins. I'm sure if you search Ron motherfucking Perkins, it would come up too. But uh, if you're on the IG, it's Left Sider, because I'm from the left coast, so it's LEFTSYDER. On Instagram, the other shits I don't really mess with, like the TikToks and the Snapchats. I got on Snapchat to watch my daughter, make sure she was staying out of trouble, but other than that, I'm actually going to be a grandpa in December, so I'm
Man,
super pumped about that.
congrats, man.
Thanks. I just bought my first pair of baby Air Jordans. Took them over to her house. She was super pumped. She's like, "Dad, what if I don't have a boy and you bought him these red Jordans?" And I go, "If I had a, if you have a boy, then I bought her some red Air Jordans." Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, get her a red dress. Come on.
My daughter wears Jordan, so
Yeah.
you can anybody can wear them.
Right.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, telling some of the story. Like I said, you've always had those high end builds that you know me as a builder and a photographer has always looked up to. So then
Appreciate that.
then the hammer deal. Like I said, I look at this, my mouse pad every day. I'm in my office and screaming hammered at me. So
Yeah,
uh,
that's super. That just is like the coolest thing ever. When everybody always asks me like, "What's your favorite part about Hammered Weekend Wear?" And I was like, "You want to know the truth? It's when I message the person the artwork and just the response that I get." Because I would tell people, I'd be like, "Hey, are you sitting down?" And they're like, "No, why?" And I said, "I got the artwork. You better sit down." And they're like, "Okay, I'm sitting down." Send them the artwork, and it's just like beep 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 beep. Like, if I'm editing myself, it's like, holy shit, motherfucker, that fuck goddamn shit. And I'm like, cool, I did my job.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I guess we'll catch you at the next show, man.
Yeah, buddy, I appreciate it. It's good seeing you, and we'll see you out there in North Carolina soon.
All right, man.
All right.